Our next speaker is Annie Madden. Annie was born and raised in Florida, but eventually made her way to New York City, where she worked in politics as a political pollster and grant maker. She moved last summer to San Diego, and we're very excited that she will be staying this summer in San Diego to be our summer course TA. And she's immersed herself in San Diego conservation issues, and you're going to learn a little bit more about some of those right now. Please welcome Annie.
San Diego, a proud and busy city, which has enjoyed phenomenal growth in the last decade. Among its many attractions, La Jolla, sometimes better known as La Jolla to the novice visitor. In the many years that La Jolla has been attracting those who would come to enjoy the warmth and quiet of comfortable Southern California, she has lost none of the charming atmosphere which is hers alone.
La Jolla, Cove, and the Kumia language is Makulahui, or place of the caves. It goes back to our creation history, when the creators left to come here and make the universe. They came from the ocean. When encroachment came, it was like a pot that was shattered on a big boulder. Our ways, our knowledge, our native epistemology was shattered and sent to different areas. I've seen sea lions ever since I was young.
The California sea lion is the most familiar member of the Pinnipedia, the order of mammals that includes sea lions, seals, and walruses. Zolophus lives in warm, temperate, and tropical waters, the largest populations occurring along the coasts of California and western Mexico, where they aggregate in enormous rookeries on the beaches and rocky headlands.
Ultimately a conservation success story. So the United States implemented legal protections for all marine mammals in 1972 with the Marine Mammal Protection Act. Prior to those legal protections, the California sea lion population, by some estimates, was fairly low. Once the protections were put in place, their population has really grown, and we've seen huge spikes in their population abundances here on the West Coast. And they are occupying newer areas.
What's causing this stench?
Marine mammals like seals and sea lions and cormorants and other birds have moved in and are using the space as they should in a marine area. But in doing so, they're leaving behind wastes, and that really does smell.
It's the beginning of the end of poop. Major announcement for the city.
You may recall San Diego paid for a 2-day cleanup of bird poop in June and a follow-up treatment in September.
And it seemed like it lasted for maybe 5 days, 6 days, maybe a week, but then it was right back again.
Big war being waged in La Jolla over sea lions.
This video shows kids and adults taking selfies with the sea lions.
Yeah, visitors will simply hop over this wall and get within feet of sea lions.
So those sea lions were actually just chasing each other, not the people on the beach necessarily, but certainly did clear everyone out.
Some are raising the question, do we have too many sea lions here at La Jolla Cove?
No more selfies with sunbathing sea lions at Point La Jolla. The city council voting to close the area.
Instead of closing the beaches to people, one group is pushing to solve the problem by removing the animals from the area.
Water hoses. I know that's what a lot of other communities and other agencies use to deter marine mammals.
But the city says that when it comes to La Jolla Cove, state or federal congressional action would need to be taken to grant the city the authority to enforce protection.
Come here because of the sea lion, because this place is very famous in Italy.
This is the Cove, right?
We've heard that there's a bunch of cute little seals, or sea lions, sorry.
We heard that there were sea lions here, so we wanted to come and see them.
They were so cool. They're bigger than I expected. They're loud, and it smells. But it's fun. It's cool.
They're fun. They look fun. Like, I want to go play with them, but I know I'm not supposed to.
We're from Vegas. You don't see none of this. None of this. No water, let alone a sea lion. Look, it's not singing. It's not singing time.
They smell bad. Stinky, stinky dinky.
It was cool. I felt like I was doing parkour on the rocks. Yeah, it was cool to see the little fishies.
I think it makes you feel positive because they're so happy, and it just makes you feel so small, right? And like your problems are so small.
They know what's nice, and so they're going to enjoy it, which is laying in the sun. They already have it great, so I think they're going to enjoy themselves.
The closest I've gotten to an animal was at the zoo, obviously, but this is different because they're in the ocean swimming, and I don't know, it just looks beautiful. They're literally just relaxing, having a great time, just like us watching them. They're watching us.
La Jolla Cove is such an iconic little beach. Coming to this beautiful beach in such an incredible setting, there's very little opportunity to prepare people before they come. Once people lock their eyes onto those animals, everything else disappears. They will be mesmerized, and they will just want to, get and see, because it's an extraordinary sight. Very often, people will just come into the area, want a selfie quickly, which means trying to get as close as possible. And then you also have people who sit there and want to watch the animals and observe them. People will look around and almost think, well, if nobody is telling me that I shouldn't be getting close, then it's obviously okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Robin, I'm with the Seal Society. We're asking everybody to take about 10 steps back, if you could. We've got a mom sea lion here with a baby. It's a mom and her baby from last year, so 11 months old. Yeah, they do bite, so we want to keep everybody healthy. This one has an earlobe like us, and they have long flippers in the front and the back, which makes them...
I think people get way too close. Even though there's signs around telling you not to get close, I think so many people ignore them.
I hope you've enjoyed the first 7 minutes and 15 seconds of my film titled La Jolla Locals. So, the place, La Jolla Cove, the protagonist, the California sea lion, and the question that I sought to explore with my capstone projects: what does peaceful coexistence between species look like in La Jolla Cove, and how do we get there? And to answer this question, I made a film, obviously. So I jumped in to doing research on my computer, digging into the archives, but also getting out there and talking to people, talking to experts, but also people on the street about their perceptions of this issue. And so, as you heard from Dr. Zachary Schachner, the conservation story of the California sea lion has been, on paper, a very positive one, as seen in this chart of California sea lion pup births since the 70s. You also got to see some archival footage of how anthropogenic use of the cove has changed over time, and also the more recent history of human-wildlife dramas in La Jolla. You got to hear from 3 out of my 5 experts, Stan, Zach, and Carol, adding some nuance. 2 experts you didn't get to hear from, Dr. Sherman De Silva, who focuses on human-wildlife conflict, and also Nick DeNezzo, who besides being supervisor of rescue at SeaWorld Rescue, helping sea lions every day, is also an NBC alumni. You got to meet some of the cast of characters that I met on the beach. I interviewed a total of 29 people, really anyone who would be willing to be on camera with a random woman who approached them on the beach. And besides the people that didn't make it on camera, I talked to so many different local people and groups, basically anyone who had strong opinions on this issue. I was trying to meet with you, and after talking to all these different people, a few things became very clear. The first of which, this is such a special place to so many people. From the Kumeyaay people, who were the first human inhabitants here, to locals and residents, that this is the best spot to access the underwater reserve, to tourists who flock to this beach to see these animals. Which brings me to my next point, which is people love these animals. That came through when everyone I spoke to. The enthusiasm for these animals is strong. The problem at La Jolla Cove is not that people have malicious intent or dislike them. For the most part, it's that we love them too much and we can't resist going right up to them. And which brings me to my third point, which is balance. One thing that I return to in my film is the idea of balance, and how do you strike balance, and what does balance look like to different people? You have this small, beautiful space with these two species that should be afraid of each other, but aren't. And one of them maybe has a crippling phone addiction. And, how do you balance that? On the topic of inspiration and love, on a more personal note, I entered into this program with zero filmmaking experience and also no real ambitions to learn. If I'm being honest, when I found out we'd have to make a film for the summer cohort, I was like, no, don't make me learn something new. But then I did, and it was so unexpectedly delightful. Yay! And I had so much fun, and all the equipment you have to learn, and little things you have to figure out, and creative problem solving. I was totally hooked. And on that note, I would not have made this project without, first, my chair, Lev, who was our summer film instructor and really imbued a DIY spirit and instruction, Patty, Ann, who I took their documentary sketchbook class, and those two literally have taught me everything I know about filmmaking, Nick and Hannah, who are amazing MVC alumni and also La Jolla locals themselves, and just all the interviewees and my classmates who helped me out so much with this project. I had so much fun on this project and got to meet so many people in my new city, and it was really great. And on that note, if you'd like to see the full-length film, please come on Friday to the film festival.
Annie, that was wonderful. I had a question about enforcement in this area. So obviously there's the Marine Mammal Protection Act, and these animals can be very dangerous, carrying zoonotic diseases, as well as domoic acid effects. So what is the enforcement looking like? I know there's volunteers who try to keep people away, but does the officials get involved, or?
Yeah, I think one direction I did not go with this documentary was focusing on sort of the complicated regulatory issues, which is that you have state groups, local groups, federal groups that all sort of defer to each other to enforce the Marine Mammal Protection Act. And I think there's recognition that the status quo maybe is not working, but there is a disagreement about who is responsible. And I think that's sort of been a lot of the media stories are who is responsible? And that's been the angle. And so that was a little less interesting to me with this. But, from the day to day, there are Seal Society volunteers on the beach when they come a few days a week. You saw Robin that I had the chance to follow. And what you see is that people want guidance in this space. And when they're provided with the guidance, they follow the rules. But yeah, I think enforcement was one of the many ideas that people threw out as, potential solution.
In so many of the news articles and pieces that have been run on local news stations over the past 10 years about this issue, it always seems to portray the community of La Jolla just being overwhelmingly against the sea lions and any protections for the sea lions or the seals at the children's pool. In doing this documentary and talking to a lot of the local La Jollans, did you get that impression, or did you feel like there was much more local joy in that community for these animals and for making sure that they're protected as well as beach access?
Thank you for that question. I think there's been a shift in the last few years. I think there's been some local groups that in the past were focused on, like, how do we change the animals' behavior, or should we get rid of the animals? And now the shift really, among all these groups, has been focused on human behavior, and how do we shift human behavior, and sort of accepting that these animals, like, they bring a lot of money to La Jolla. They bring a lot of people. They've become, like, it's the Times Square of San Diego. And so I think there is over time recognition. And also I think, like, proposing maybe, like, yeah, let's hit them with water hoses. They probably got some pushback from animal lovers on that, yeah.